I do not want Swifties.
Right, you don't want them coming at us.
Not till we get that Little Debbie sponsorship.
Yeah, then it won't matter. We'll be too powerful. Meet Sara and Samantha.
Two cousins obsessed with exploring the vast pop culture landscape, one recommendation at a time.
In each episode, one clueless cousin shares real-time reactions as they navigate the twists and turns of a pop culture topic selected by the other.
From travel to movies,
Little Debbie's to trashy novels.
Get ready to eavesdrop on the candid reactions and dynamic conversations you can only have with family.
This is Foreign and Familiar.
Welcome to the Foreign and Familiar podcast. I am Samantha.
And I'm Sara.
And today we have a really interesting one, Sara. A little bit different from what we normally do. Our first foray into music and musician.
Right.
With the, topic of Miss T. Swift, Taylor Swift.
Of course, we had to cover it.
If for no reason other than it's just such a cultural moment right now.
Exactly.
So
it's everywhere.
Yeah, and also because we're planning to see her, right?
We are, yes.
And Dublin next year in a Viva Stadium, flying over to Europe to check out the Eras tour.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to dig in and kind of talk about, a couple different things there. I think, first of all, I was going through the store and I know that we stan Little Debbie and we're always talking about our Little Debbie snack cakes. So I will say I grabbed a new variety that I was really interested in just getting a thought. Have you had the honey buns?
I have. They're not something that I go for often, mostly just because of the size. Like they're pretty big, but they are really good. I do enjoy them when I have them.
I had my first ever honey bun. And listen, if this podcast brings me a lot of joy in a lot of different ways, it exposes me to new things. It's great conversation. I can spend time with my cousin, my friend, but it also just is additional fodder for me to just buy Little Debbie's and feel like it's for research.
Right.
I would never buy the honey buns before, and this was a great reason for me to try the honey bun. So I had one. It's interesting you talk about, I think the size is a little bit awkward because it's not small like the other ones and it's not huge like the giant ones. So I had one and I would say I am a cinnamon bun connoisseur.
Okay.
Cinnabon?
Right.
I make my own cinnamon rolls. I feel like there have been moments when people ask me what I think heaven would be like, and my response is the core of a cinnamon bun.
It's perfect.
So I thought that the honey buns were going to be cinnamon buns. So it's not that I didn't like them, but a honey bun, I have learned, is not a cinnamon bun.
No, it's not. Which maybe I try to compare them to cinnamon buns. Maybe if I put it in its own category, I'd enjoy it more. I don't know.
Honey is an interesting thing, And as I'm sitting here Googling, it talks about what's the difference between a cinnamon roll and a honey bun. So actually, I think just in this really quick research we're doing in the moment here, a cinnamon roll, as made sense, is a roll of cinnamon and it's one big lug, you cut it, you have it all in there. And then a honey bun, I think, is just like an enriched dough with like a honey glaze on it. So I guess they are completely different things.
Right.
I feel like I have to go back now with fresh eyes and eat a honey bun.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you have, because there are honey buns and then there are iced honey buns. I don't know that the iced honey buns come in like the box. I think they're just like the giant ones you can buy at the gas station.
They're Little Debbie iced honey buns?
Yeah, there are Little Debbie ones. Yeah.
I believe this is a 6-pack of glazed honey buns.
So they're not the iced ones.
That would make it so much better though.
Yeah, we should do a comparison of the glazed versus the iced honey buns.
It feels like a coffee roll. I think for Little Debbie on the honey bun is if you are hosting people and it's coffee and it's a sweet treat breakfast. I mean, take 6 of them, take them out of the package, put them on a plate, and people are not going to know they're Little Debbie Honey Buns, and they're going to check that box and do that. As far as like snacking and satisfying my sweet tooth, I would pick the other things.
Same. Yeah.
So this issue of Foreign and Familiar podcast, we are going to be talking about all things Taylor Swift. And in keeping with the theme here, it's going to be familiar to me and foreign to Sarah. Not really in the sense of we all listen through. It's a little bit of a mix, but I actually have seen Taylor Swift before in concert. I went through a phase where, I would say, and this is, I really kind of, it's not even that it's that big of a deal, but I have seen Rascal Flatts in concert several times.
It's Rascal Flatts.
Back in their heyday and before it was oversaturated and you realize that they only have one sound and it's the same song, you know, it's the what hurts the most, you know, that's a, you know, God bless the bird. I mean, they had a moment and they did.
And I was there for it.
And I was up at Syracuse for a year for grad school. And they were playing at the New York State Fair about 15 years ago. And Taylor Swift opened for them. She opened, it was in the grandstand. It's like, you know, there's farm stuff all around it. And she had just had her first album out. I think what people forget and or don't realize is like she was country.
Right. She was.
But not just kind of like Carrie Underwood was country. She was country. She was opening for Rascal Flatts.
Yep.
And she was probably like 17 or 18 at the time. Looking back, it's like so interesting to see who she is now. And it'll be cool to see her in the stadium, like headlining in Europe and doing the Eras Tour and stuff. When I saw her, she had like 5 songs and curly hair and people were getting beers. She did a good show. I mean, I think she's always, no matter kind of what era she's been in, she's evolved a little bit, but it is kind of bizarre to think that I've seen her. It jogs my memory. I just remembered that I saw her. Not that, I guess I'm like, she was the one, you know, me and my friends were there, but.
So was that your first experience with Taylor Swift?
Yeah, I mean, so I will be clear here. I really go back and forth on her quite a bit to this day. I have been much more of like a hater / non-supporter. Some of the albums have changed my opinion, which I think we talked about before we can kind of get into. But the premise of today is, you know, to kind of talk about what we're going to do. And then I know that there are some albums that both of us haven't listened to.
Right.
And we really want to talk through. So I would say yes. I would say for her, I listened to that first album. I listened to Fearless and Speak Now. Like that was kind of all country and kind of starting to move. And I was like listening. I really like her for a country artist. I, for lack of a better term, not to sound like, you know, Tom Sandoval from Vanderpump Rules, but I dipped out kind of for a little bit around the Red era. I'm not saying I didn't pay. It's impossible to hide from her music. She has changed stuff all the time. But for me, Folklore was a game changer for me. Evermore was during COVID. I felt like was a completely new side of her and almost like a return to form. And then that's what made me kind of go back. And so that's what we're doing. But how about you? Talk to me about your Taylor.
Yes. So I got her first album for Christmas in 2006 when it came out, or I guess, 2006. I think I had seen Teardrops on My Guitar on CMT. That's what I did before school in the morning, was watched like CMT.
Now, is country big in your house when you're like, does your family listen to country?
My grandparents did. I feel like 90s country I was very into. Toby Keith, a little bit of Rascal Flatts, the Chicks.
Martina McBride,
Shania Twain. So I saw Teardrops on My Guitar on CMT, and I was like, I'm obsessed with this Taylor Swift person. I want her CD. So I like pointed it out to my parents, and then I got it for Christmas and spent all of winter break just listening to that album. And it was pretty much all I listened to for like the next 6 months. My grandpa actually still makes fun of me but I would cut his grass in the summer and I would just like belt the songs over the lawnmower so he would hear them from the house. So he makes fun of me from that still. But anyway, so obsessed with the first album. And then I listened to Fearless, and then my friend got Speak Now, and she let me burn her CD, so I had a copy. And then very similarly, I just kind of like lost interest when she kind of transitioned from country to pop. But it's hard to get away from, like, when you really think about how many of her songs are hits that are on the radio, like, it's hard to get away from that. But I got really excited when Folklore and Evermore came out, because I felt like that was more the genre that I was interested in. I'm not like a huge pop person, so I kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe Shake It Off, which is a pop anthem.
Yeah.
Has its place and is the same one that's doing Our Song, you know, from her first country album, which is the same one that's doing. So we kind of have a very similar journey with her.
Yeah.
I really go back and forth with her, but there are some things, and like, you know, I think we want to keep it positive, which you couldn't tell from some of the other things. And also because I'm terrified of any of the Swiftie fan base. I can't ever get into the level that they're going to get into, and they talk about this and that. Like, it's just too much to track all of it. And also, yeah, I took 10 years off from listening to her music, so there's no way I'm going to catch up. But I just think it's hard to deny her longevity, her reinvention mechanisms. And I will say I am very supportive of her effort to re-record her first 7 or 8 albums to make sure that she has the rights to her music and is making
absolutely
and can do what she wants. So I support that. And I will say I do think it is very creative. I love this idea of the Eras tour.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've really ever seen anybody else do that. So for people that may be listening that may not know what it is, I think Taylor has had definitely a very different visual style, musical style. We can talk and debate, and I'm sure that we will. So a very different visual style for every album that she has done. And so the course of this tour is she's going to go through and play select songs off every single album, and she changes the wardrobe, and it's songs from the era. So she will play all the songs, not like mixed up like in a trail mix, but she'll play the Lover songs that she's going to pick. She'll play the Red song she's going to pick. And, you know, people play along by dressing up in the era that most speaks to them. So I think it's a really unique version, like a really unique type of tour.
Right, because it spans such a wide audience, because it covers so many genres, such a long period of time. So it's like there's something for everybody.
Yeah, it's a concept tour, you know, and we obviously see different concepts. I have not been fortunate enough to see any type of Beyonce, because quite frankly, I can't get tickets. But, you know, that would be a full experience concept. Like, that's the whole thing. Everything is thought of. I just saw Pink a little bit earlier this year, and her concept is carnival. And I will say she hits that, like the light show's carnival, the dress is carnival. She makes sure that she really leans into like an elevated carnival, summer carnival experience. And it works and it makes sense, and it's uniquely Pink. So I think with Taylor, eras, now you see everywhere on social, like in my so-and-so era and my blah, blah, blah. Like, so I think that's cool. But
yeah, definitely. Should we talk about our eras because we've already been doing some outfit planning?
For sure. You go first.
Okay. Well, I picked Speak Now as my era because that was my favorite album that I listened to for a really, really long time. A lot of my favorite songs came from there. So that's what I'm going with.
I think what's odd about Speak Now, though, is because I would agree. I really liked the Speak Now. I feel like Speak Now was the cutoff before she became like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She was like a country star.
Right.
Kind of like, you know, what Casey Musgraves is doing now, or Mary. It's like they're on the cusp, and they're probably due for a crossover album. But she doesn't sing much off that album on the tour.
No, I've been listening to the set list and looking at them. There's hardly anything on there.
I think there is lore, and again, you can't get into all this stuff, but I think that there is some sort of lore that she might not like the Speak Now album, and that's why she never features it. But
it could be.
I don't know. So my era that I'm going to do is the Reputation album, and really the reason I'm doing that is because it lines up a lot more into what my style already is. So, you leather, fringe, rhinestones, kind of this sultry vibe. And it'll be fun to dress like that and have that come through. So it's not necessarily that I'm doing Reputation because I think it's the best album. I would actually say it's the exact opposite, which we will get into shortly here, but it's the one that I'm most excited to dress within the theme. I think it's going to be fun.
Right.
So how about we take a break, we come back, and then we start talking about maybe what the different albums are, what albums we listen to for the first time, and kind of dig in after the break.
Yeah, sounds good.
I do not want Swifties.
Right, you don't want them coming at us.
Not till we get that Little Debbie sponsorship.
Yeah, then it won't matter. We'll be too powerful. All right, we are back. We're going to talk through some of the T-Swift albums to kind of get us started there. I have a list of every album and when it was released. So for anyone who is not familiar or needs a refresher, these will also be the eras for the Eras tour. So started in 2006, like we already talked about with her first album, Taylor Swift. Fearless came out in 2008. Speak Now, which is my chosen era, was in 2010. Red came out in 2012. 1989, it was originally released in 2014. Reputation was in 2017. Lover in 2019. And then during COVID, we had Folklore and Evermore back-to-back in 2020. And Midnights came out in 2022. Now, I didn't include all of the re-records in there because it's just a lot.
So she's been churning a new album every 2 or 3 years for 20 years. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
That's impressive. I will say, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but that's what we do here, is Rihanna had a early 2000s, like no one. Everybody talks about not having, new stuff from her. So she did Music of the Sun in 2005, A Girl Like Me in 2006, Good Girl Gone Bad in 2007, Rated R in 2009, Loud in 2010, Talk That Talk in 2011, Unapologetic in 2012, and then in 2016, she did Anti. So she really churned out 7 albums in 7 years. Taylor turning out 10 albums in 20 years. I mean, these women are just unbelievable on a neck-breaking pace, all while they're doing other things too, right? What is it about Speak Now that you like?
Nostalgia, right? Like I listened to that through like all of high school. I really liked it was country, but it didn't feel too country. It was like we've already established that I'm a huge fantasy reader. That was the case back then too. So I really felt she kind of hit the nail on the head with that whole, like, I don't know, heroine kind of vibe. Like, we've got Sparks Fly, we've got Enchanted, so we've got like the romance part there, but it kind of, I felt like she was kind of headed that direction with Fearless, and then Speak Now just kind of like elevated that whole vibe. So I was totally about that.
Enchanted is such a great song, and that is the only one I think she's playing from Speak Now on the tour. And if that's the only one she plays, to me, that's work, because that's a really great deep cut that I would say is a deep cut for sure. My favorite album, which I think is pretty divisive, my favorite album is Evermore, which is the companion to Folklore that came out during COVID. Mm-hmm. I think because her music has matured and or changed as she has. And so I just think that album it's a perfect winter album. It's perfect for like a glass of wine. And there's just melancholy reflection and deeper lyrics. All of her stuff has a place, but she's not just talking about we are never ever getting back together, right, or like things like that. She's talking about, losing her grandma, or like significant relationship breakups, cheating on a partner, cheating on a spouse, all of those different types of things. And I just felt like that's kind of how it was with Folklore too. I just felt like there was such a depth in some of those albums of a woman that is reflecting on certain things and not necessarily using the boyfriends for fodder to write things. And,
right.
Which is her prerogative. She can do whatever she wants. It's just the mileage varies on that for people. It felt like it was her album that she made when she was locked away and the whole world kind of shut down, and like that's what came out of her. And so I appreciate the artistry. I'm not saying that there's not artistry or thought or visual cues in some of the other ones, but so I like Evermore. For the purpose of this podcast, though, there are albums that we haven't listened to because we talked about we did a self-imposed kind of ban or, kind of getting away from her for a little bit. So
Right.
So the album that I listened to for the first time, beginning to end, is Reputation from 2017. How about you?
And I listened to Lover from 2018.
And I think they were back to back in
2019, sorry.
Okay. But they were back to back, right? Like,
yes.
Okay. So I have listened to Lover, but that was a relatively new one. Have you listened to Reputation?
No, I haven't listened to the whole thing. I would say I probably know 3 songs off of Reputation. But I am excited. I held off on listening to it. I was going to, but I wanted to wait until after we had recorded. But I think now that we've talked about it, though, I think I'm just going to watch the tour, and that's going to be my first exposure to it.
I think that's probably going to be the best exposure to it.
Probably.
So we have Reputation and Lover. To set the ground a little bit before we get in, 1989, which came out in 2014, was her biggest album. It sold 10 million records, the height of her fame. What's on that one? Style,
Wildest Dreams. There's a lot, when you sit and think about it, there's a lot of great songs from that. Welcome to New York, Message in a Bottle, How You Get the Girl.
But Blank Space is on there.
They're all great pop songs.
So it makes sense that was the most mainstream and the most successful she's been. Then she had the falling out, the celebrities, the kind of, all that stuff, all the X, Y, Z. So she went into kind of self-imposed hiding for 3 years because I think that her shine was kind of coming off, the veneer was cracking, and people were, whether rightfully, not rightfully, whatever, she had been around for 8 years. And I think that we kind of do that, whether it's founded criticisms, which I think there is some validity in some of it, right? I do think at the same time, us as a society go, okay, it's been 8 years. Like, I'm sick of seeing your face. You can go away. So
yeah, and start to make judgments just because somebody's been around for a while. Yeah.
Right. So I think that when Reputation came back, it was her first album in 3 years. And I think if you look, like, she had never gone longer than a year or two in between those albums. And it does mark a very, very different, not just visual look for her, but sound for her. It is her edgiest and grittiest album. And then Lover came after it, which I think these are great that we're kind of just, and we didn't plan this, but like comparing these two, because Lover is such a different, it really starts to show, I think, starting with Reputation, is as different as Lover is from Folklore. Folklore and Evermore together, I would say those are together.
By design.
Yeah. And then Midnights is different. So it's nice that we're kind of doing these two. And if they truly are her diaries, a reflection of her life, it's like interesting to go back and revisit. So
yeah.
So you have categories. Tell us what the categories are. Go ahead.
So we have familiar songs, so songs that we knew before listening to the album the whole way through. We have favorites, pleasant surprises, and then songs that just didn't work for us. We'll get into all of those categories and our thoughts on Reputation and Lover when we come back from a break. Four categories: familiar songs, favorites, pleasant surprises, and dislikes. Starting with songs that we're familiar with. So songs that either you just knew or didn't know came from that album, or you just know that they're popular songs. What from Reputation did you already know?
On Reputation, I was actually a little surprised. I would say I go in with a bias because I Look What You Made Me Do is such a miss for me. It was a miss when it came out. Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy is credited on that song. So to me, I never gave Reputation any time of day because that was the lead single. And I think we could really argue about if that was the right thing. She was trying to make a statement on that. So that's one I was familiar with and that I was not excited to hear again. I was familiar with Delicate, which is stellar. I would put that in her top echelon of best songs. It is her track 5, which everyone talks about. The 5th track of every album is supposed to be like her best song on the album. She strategically puts things. So Delicate, is great. Don't Blame Me, I was familiar with. And I think I would say that. Ready for It here and there, but not until I heard it. Like when I heard that, I was like, I heard that again.
Yeah, that was Ready for It is a song that I was familiar with, but I only knew like the Are You Ready for It part from going to Penn State football games because they play that little segment with like the lion roar. So that's all that I knew. I've been listening to the Eras set list, so that's on there. I always listen for like the lion roar and I'm like confused when it's not there.
How about for you? What were you familiar with over on the Lover album?
Quite a lot. I was surprised. And again, it could just be because I've been listening to the Eras Tour set list and the first 5 songs are all from Lover. So I was familiar with Me, The Man, Cruel Summer, You Need to Calm Down, Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince, I Forgot That You Existed, Daylight, The Archer, and Lover. So that's a lot to already know. And I had no idea that they were all from the same album until I started listening to it. So I feel like I went into it knowing quite a bit, which was nice then because I paid close attention to the songs that I wasn't familiar with because there weren't as many.
I agree with you. When I listened to Lover for the first time, which was just a couple months ago. So to listen to the album front to back as they, design, and to know that there's so many from Lover. Honestly, I look at Lover as, I think Evermore is the winter album and Lover is the summer album. It's light, it's breezy, and I think it's probably, if Evermore didn't exist, I do think that Lover would be my favorite album.
So let's then move on to favorites off of the album. So was there anything that you would say is your favorite off of Reputation?
Yeah, I mean, Delicate,
Delicate, yeah.
Delicate is a great song. It's in the upper echelon. And Don't Blame Me is a really good one. You would know that if you heard that. Do you know that?
I think so because it's on the set list. So I've heard it.
That one is very, very, she's got a chorus. Like, it is a very big departure. Again, there are things like whether you listen to her or don't listen to her, the fact that she's doing Don't Blame Me a couple years after she's doing We Never Go Out of Style is a departure, So
Right.
I will say in general, what I liked about this album is that it's by far her sexiest album. There is sultry lyrics. She's really kind of exploring that. The song Dress, she talks about, I bought this dress just so you could take it off, right? And she's very forward and open. And for her, it's just nice. It just kind of feels like, okay, 2017, she's probably in her late 20s at that point, like mid 20s, something like that. And she's really kind of, when you look at the leather, when you look at the snakes, when you look at that, it feels like she's really like stepping in and owning her, sexuality. So I did like the song Dress. I thought that was a good one. And I think people do really tend to like New Year's Day. I understand that. I think that's an emotional one. I do find it a little bit interesting to end on that. It's a very soft ending to the album, reflective. So those were the ones I would say that were really kind of the standouts for me. How about you?
So my favorite is also track number 5, and it's The Archer. I was doing some research on it, and I think somebody described it as being a song about anxiety because there's this build-up in the background, right, with the synth and the background singers building up, and you're waiting for, like, the beat to drop, and then it just ends. So I really like the performance. That's my favorite song.
I think that what's interesting about The Archer is that's one of the ones that's reflective of her behavior in a in a relationship, or she's, again, I think The Archer is a cue to Folklore and Evermore.
Right.
It's Paper Rings. Is that on?
Paper Rings is on there, and that is the first one listed under my pleasant surprises. So we can just transition right there. Paper Rings, Death by a Thousand Cuts. Both of those I was pleasantly surprised with. I really enjoyed them. And Soon You'll Get Better was a hard hitter. Like, I got emotional during that one. According to Wikipedia, the song is about the battles Swift's parents have had with cancer, and specifically on her mother's latest diagnosis. Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't positive. So yeah, it's just, it's her singing about the experiences that she's going through watching somebody she loves fight a terminal illness. And it's hard, And I think she really covers what she's experiencing in that song. So it sounds like a weird one to put as like favorite or a pleasant surprise, because it's not about something pleasant, but I think it really conveys the message that she was trying to.
There's a depth. I'm not going to say that there hasn't been depth in her, but you're literally watching her mature, and her albums do feel like outputs of what she's going through at that time.
Right.
My favorite thing to say is she's the queen of one really great lyric, and the lyric is so great that it pulls you in for the rest of the stuff. So in Miss Americana, which is a dope song, I love that one, but it's you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, right?
Yeah.
And Delicate, it's my reputation's never been worse. She kind of will find the money lyric. Cruel Summer, I don't want to keep secrets. And what a banger that turned out. I mean,
I can't wait to scream the bridge with everybody else.
And you know what's funny about that is Lover came out 5 years ago. It's just released as a single this summer because it's gained so much traction from the tour and from people listening. So like now you hear it on the radio, and I love that. That's like a less than 3-minute song, earworm, ear candy. It's like, I don't know, if you don't like the song Cruel Summer, then do you have a pulse? Even if you don't like her, like that's like pop glory. But again, it's kind of has found its own way,
Yeah. So any pleasant surprises from Reputation? Anything that you were surprised to find you really enjoyed?
Honestly, and this is surprise itself, a pleasant surprise was Look What You Made Me Do, which is the one that I said I have zero time for. It's the one that turned me off the entire album. I think other than that part of the song where she just repeats Look What You Made Me Do 17 times in a row.
Yeah.
Everything other than that is a banger of a song. She's got the lyrics, it builds, you've got it's just that's the chorus and that comes through. And it just, sometimes I think there's just a try to have an edge and a heart. And it's like, well, what did you do?
Right.
What'd you end up doing? Like putting on some leather pants or whatever? Like she just, like, there are just some things. I kind of feel the same way on the new one about vigilante-ish, That's a fun song. She's going to play it on the Eras tour. I think it's going to be great. But, very clearly she's trying to have girls, draw the cat. I feel like I like her more effortless stuff, I would say, because I do think she is very talented, that she doesn't have to, always overproduce and coordinate things. But I will say, Look What She Made Me Do. It's a shame that this is the chorus or that this is the direction it goes, because the song's really good.
That song reminds me of something that my dad would make up. Like, it sounds like a song that he would write, and he can't remember lyrics to songs.
Yeah, exactly. If we go back and look at it, I just don't think it was a great lead single on that album.
So anything that was like a hard pass for you?
Unfortunately, I feel like most of the rest of the album I didn't enjoy listening to. I've heard so many people say Reputation is her best album. It's an underrated album. I would say the hard pass is Endgame, which has Ed Sheeran and Future on it.
Right.
Well, I can appreciate that she's trying to do something different. To me, it didn't work on any level. And then the rest of the stuff, I just thought, again, this is why we can't have nice things is the name of a song, like Getaway Car. Like it's there. I just think in comparison to some of her other stuff. And again, that may change on some re-listens, but with Lover, it's like I listened to Lover the whole way through and I thought, oh gosh, like that was really good. And then I listened to it again. I don't know that I'm really jonesing to listen to Reputation again. And not that there aren't good songs on there. It's just for me, it is such a different sound for her.
Right.
I understand why it's an important album for her, though, to show that versatility.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How about for you?
I had a couple. I think He Knows was an early song on the album, and I couldn't get into it. I don't know if it was the lyrics, if it was the music. I was bored. False God was another one that just wasn't working for me. I think she was trying to be sexy, and it wasn't. I didn't think it was. And then It's Nice to Have a Friend. I think it was the steel drums. I couldn't figure out how the steel drums fit into the song. It was cool because it was kind of an off tempo musically, like it didn't fit into like a normal pattern. That was cool, but like some of the musical choices, one of the songs there was like random saxophone and I was like, this is unnecessary. I don't know if that might have been my issue with False God. I'm having trouble remembering now, but the steel drums in It's Nice to Have a Friend, I could have done without it.
I'm trying to look to see Jack Antonoff produce that. I think he has a very specific sound, look, and feel. The ones on Folklore that he produces. And
right.
Honestly, I don't think he did much on Folklore. I think he produced like maybe 2 or 3 songs, and he has a very distinct sound. So maybe that's kind of where that's coming in. It does look like he did produce that one. So I will say, as far as the Eras tours go, I actually am really looking forward to the Reputation era part of the tour. I think she's picked the 4 best songs from the album, 4 or 5 best songs of the album. And I'm looking forward to seeing her play all of those songs live.
Right.
Like What She Made Me Do.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. So should we talk about surprise songs that we're hoping for?
I think we can talk about some surprise songs when we get back from the break. It sounds like a great way to close out our T Swift app.
Okay, so wrapping up, let's talk about surprise songs that we're hoping for in the tour.
Before we get into it, for people that may not be familiar, may not know what the surprise songs are, please, Sarah, enlighten them.
For each performance, she has her set list of songs that she performs in every single show. And then there are 2 additional songs that are not announced ahead of time, that are surprise songs in each of the shows.
She picks 2 songs from her entire catalog to surprise. And that's a way, I think, for her to make it a personalized experience because of the scale of her production.
Right.
Not going to be like others. I shouldn't even bring up John Mayer. I've seen him so many times. Like, he legitimately changes up his set list every night based on what he feels. And he can do that because he doesn't have the production.
Right. Yeah. And as far as I know, they're just like very simple acoustic versions. My number 5 choice for surprise songs is A Place in This World from her first album, which I just re-listened to yesterday. And I think for the time and as a teen listening to that album, you're really just trying to figure out like where you belong in this world. And I think it just really describes that point of time. So that I thought that was a really great song, and I would love to hear that one.
As an educator, does that speak to your soul, Sarah?
It does. Yeah. I mean, kids are like, they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what it means to be an adult. And they have so many decisions that they have to make so early on. I get it. It's hard.
My number 5 is actually from Speak Now, and it is Mine.
That's a good one. I do like that one.
That one, I think that one had a nice run on the radio. If we go back to this idea of having one great lyric, now she's got a lot of great lyrics, but like one that's like the hook, you made a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter.
Oh, yeah.
anytime. She says it like 3 or 4 times in the song, and every single time. I mean, that's a lyric that you want to sing and to make sure you hear it every time. And so I would love to hear mine.
Okay, so my number 4 is Sparks Fly from Speak Now. I love that song. It's so good.
That is a really good one.
It's so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a good one, Sarah. That's a good one. I love it. My number 4 is actually a collab.
Okay.
Which I think she is doing on the tours, and I know that she has done this. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't want any vault tracks from the new record, but that's okay. We'll get what we get. Number 4 is I Don't Want to Live Forever, which is her duet with Zayn Malik from One Direction from the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack. So I've never watched 50 Shades of Grey. I've never read it. I've never done anything like that. But that song has been popping up on my Spotify a lot lately. It's really great. And then I actually also did go see a One Direction concert at the height of their fame 10 years ago, Soldier Field. I was with the Gen Zers on that one. Zayn was my favorite in One Direction, but that song is I just think it's the more you listen to it, the more it's good. So I would totally love to hear that one. It would just be her singing it, but I still think it would be great.
I thought you were going to say Safe and Sound from the Hunger Games, since we were talking about the Hunger Games so much with the Civil Wars. I think that's who.
She's got I don't even know. She does a lot of soundtracks, like the one with Where the Crawdads Sing. I don't even know what that song is.
I don't either.
But anyway.
My number 3 is State of Grace from Red. That's the very first song on the album. I think it's just Red's like a weird album because it's a little bit of country, it's a little bit of pop. It's just kind of like it's definitely that transition album. But I think it's such an upbeat, positive song. I think it would be really cool to hear like an acoustic version of that.
I think it's very interesting because when I'm looking at the set list, the Red era is the one that I'm least excited for and or will time my restroom breaks for. I would agree with you. I think that's a strange album. We Are Never Getting Back Together, 22, but then she's got State of Grace and some of the other ones. Number 3 for me is Maroon from Midnights, which is her latest album. I don't think that one gets near enough. I cannot believe that feels like a lost track on the album, but talking about, she's got this thing where she really talks about love in different colors. And I think when she hits those songs, it's awesome, right? So this idea of, her reflecting on this and, it was so scarlet, it was maroon and it's over. It's just a very, very pretty song. And honestly, I was surprised it didn't make her set list.
I know. I was just double checking. I'm surprised it's not on there too.
I don't think a lot of people, sometimes when people are talking about Midnights, they'll say that they think Maroon is the throwaway. I also really although, I'm just cheating right now, but Snow on the Beach is another one that a lot of people skip on Midnights. And I think that one's about when you realize that you have a crush on someone and they have a crush on you too. And it's this feeling. I think she really captures moments in a relationship well. And again, like I've said previously, whether people believe or not, I do have a very romantic side to me. And so it's some of those things you can see, or you can see the reflection on it. So number 3 is Maroon. I would love that. I would love that.
Awesome. So now we're in top 2. So my number 2 choice is Exile. Like we've talked about, Folklore and Evermore. I really like the vibe off those albums too. And Exile is one of my favorite songs.
I think she did just sing that in LA. One of my friends was at a show where she sang that, and she said that the crowd just sang Bon Iver's part.
Oh, that's cool.
His voice.
That's a cool way to do it.
His voice is so rich on that.
Yeah.
I don't listen to a lot of Bon Iver.
I don't either.
In fact, he might be called Bon Iver. I have no clue. I didn't know the tone and the quality of his voice until that song. And to what you're talking about, that's a story, I would love that one. That's a really good pick.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2, after everything I just said, is the song Red from the Red album.
Red is a good song.
Again, it's a love song tied to a color, tied to a moment. you got your one lyric, loving him is like driving a new Maserati down a dead-end street, going through the whole phases of this song. And I just feel like haven't we all had, these, if she's putting a color and describing a type of relationship, I think it will flash me back. I can tell you exactly who Loving Him Was Red would be about for me.
Right.
And like I said, Red is a very interesting album because I would say I like State of Grace, but then there are just so many on the Red album that I probably could pass and am going to actually plan to at the concert. So
yeah.
But yes, if she sang Red, I would die. Die. I love that song. Yeah.
It's a great one.
And all right, still sorry. That's still okay. Like a little bit of her country roots.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into our number one. My number one is Evermore. I love that song.
What is it that you like about here's the thing. I'm so fascinated that you have both of the Bon Iver collaborations at the top. So what is it about that you love?
Okay, so this is really ridiculous. Are you ready for this? You're going to hate this. So that song came out. You're laughing already. Stop.
Well, so I'm just laughing because you're like, you're going to hate this.
You're going to hate this.
Primed me.
I've primed you. Okay, so that song came out at a time where I had just finished reading a book about a couple that were in a cabin in the snow.
You're literally talking about you associate the song Evermore with the people from A Court of Thorns.
Yes, it came out at the exact same time that I was reading, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like Feyre, what she's thinking. And yeah, so that's why I initially really enjoyed it. But I do also, I can't handle your face, I do also like, kind of ties into that melancholy tone of the whole like folklore Evermore. I really like that.
Yes. Yep. Well, I would say my number one is also from Evermore. So again, favorite album you're talking there, but it's different. It's Ivy.
That's also a good one. Does that one remind you of Tamlin? Is that why you picked it?
Absolutely not. I just think, again, just there's the melancholy, there's the deepness. I did not realize it's a song about an affair until after I was listening to it. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that completely makes sense. Evermore as a whole, and a lot of people, I mean, I understand. I think it's just a very mature album. It's a vibe. I listen to Evermore in the winter and the fall. We're almost into Evermore season. It's not an easy, let's pop on let's listen to Marjorie right now. I mean,
right.
Really like heavy stuff. And I think you have to kind of get lost in your feelings. But yeah, Ivy is a great one. So that's probably what I would want to hear. Here's the thing, regardless, and I read this and it's a big thing. It's like whether you like it or not like it. And I know you really wanted to go see her. And I think for me, it would be if it were a situation like it is here where we'd be traveling, we'd be going and it's so special. But I think, whether you're a fan, not a fan, think it's ridiculous. It is such a cultural moment that is happening right now. And I'm just excited to be a part of it. And they're saying she's literally reboosting the economy between her and Barbie. And when she was here in Chicago, it was the highest night of hotel rooms, revenue gross, anything like that in the history of the city of Chicago. So, you cannot, while there are a lot of things that you probably could go out and criticize, and God knows I do, I don't think that you can minimize the impact, the talent, or, that there's something for everybody.
Right.
She's committed to what her brand is. Let's put it that way.
I think it doesn't get enough mention, but she does, from what I've seen in several of the cities she's visited, has given sizable donations to some of the homeless shelters and some charitable organizations in the city too. So I don't think that gets highlighted enough. People talk about hearing her from miles away and the city shaking, but
yeah, it's the work ethic. And I mean, she's doing this tour for probably a year or two, grinding it out, doing all that. and granted, I think what also doesn't get talked about is like she's making all the money off it, right? I mean,
right. Yeah.
Some of her fans are starting to get frustrated. I saw because they're like, "Oh man, now it's a limited and limited edition here. It's limited." And yeah, we all like money. Like she likes money, and she's gonna do it, and you're gonna behave a certain way. And I'm just so excited to go. I'm excited to go with you. We have 2 other people that are coming too, so I think that'll be fun.
Yeah. And we didn't mention this, but we're not going to Ireland specifically to see her. We looked at her international tour dates. We had already wanted to do an international trip. The ticket prices were so much more affordable, even with the conversion. And so we had wanted to go to Ireland. She was playing in Ireland. We managed to get the tickets. We could afford them. It all just worked out.
It did. And it started when we were in McDonald's in Tokyo. And we said, if we wanted to go I think we were planning our next trip and we said Ireland. And then we said, wouldn't it be cool? And it's just kind of cool. It's going to be awesome when we're there because it's just, yes, but I think that's great. And we'll move it up in the podcast. It is not a trip to Ireland to see Taylor Swift. It is our annual vacation. And we're bookmarking it with Taylor Swift. And I have no idea if that's going to be at the beginning of the vacay or at the end of the vacay. But
yeah, we just know the date that we have to be there for that. So we'll plan the rest of the trip.
And it's going to be awesome for me and my cousin, your husband.
Yeah.
To be in Ireland. I've never been to Ireland though. So I'm excited to see it. Well, that is it. That is the rundown of Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour, the upcoming Eras Tour. Thank you guys so much for eavesdropping.
Thanks for being on this journey with us of preparing for our trip to Dublin.
Thanks for eavesdropping on us.
If you can't get enough of the Cousin Chronicles, head over to Instagram and follow @FoFamPod for more in-depth info and behind-the-scenes details.
Or email us at foreignfamiliarpod@gmail.com.
Foreign and Familiar is a Flynn & Flynn production.
The theme is Colorful by Allerlie von Nicolai.